in the bustling city of Lagos, where the streets are always busy with people going about their day, a young man named Kofi was on his way to his new job. Kofi was 28 years old, with dark skin, a tall frame, and a confident smile. He had just been hired as the new manager at a big company called Unjust, known for its innovations in technology across Africa. As Kofi walked through the busy streets, dressed in a neat suit and carrying a briefcase, he felt excited and a bit nervous about his first day. He had worked hard to get to this point, studying long hours and working several jobs to support himself and his family. As he approached a busy intersection, a police officer named Inspector Aide stopped him. Inspector Aide was known for being tough and sometimes unfair. He looked at Kofi suspiciously and asked in a harsh tone, "Where do you think you're going dressed like that?" Kofi, surprised by the officer's tone, replied politely, "Good morning, officer. I'm on my way to work." Inspector Aide frowned. "Work? Dressed like you own the whole street. What kind of work do you do?" Kofi hesitated for a moment, not wanting to cause any trouble. "I just got a new job as a manager," he explained. The officer didn't believe him. "Manager? You don't make me laugh," he scoffed. "You look like you're up to no good. Show me your ID and explain why you're here, or I'll take you to the station." People on the street began to gather around, watching the scene unfold. Kofi felt embarrassed and humiliated, but he knew he had to keep calm. He handed over his ID to Inspector Aide, who looked at it and frowned even more. "This ID looks fake," the officer accused. "You think you can fool me? Get down on your knees." Kofi couldn't believe what was happening. He tried to reason with the officer. "Please, officer, I'm telling the truth. I don't want any trouble. I'm just trying to get to work." But Inspector Aide wasn't listening. He continued to shout and made Kofi kneel in the middle of the busy street, while people whispered and pointed. Kofi's heart sank. He had never been treated this way before. Just then, a sleek black car pulled up to the curb. A man in a sharp suit stepped out, looking around to see what was causing the commotion. It was Mr. Humiliates, the CEO of Unjust. He had come to see how his new manager was settling in on his first day. Mr. Humiliates noticed Kofi and the officer immediately. He walked over, his face stern. "What's going on here?" he demanded. Inspector Aide turned around, surprised to see the important man. "Sir, I'm just dealing with this suspicious person," he said confidently, still holding Kofi's ID. Mr. Humiliates took one look at the ID and then at Kofi, who was still kneeling on the ground. His expression changed to one of concern. "This suspicious person is my new manager," Mr. Humiliates said firmly, "and I don't appreciate my employees being treated this way." Inspector Aide's face turned pale as the realization hit him. The young man he had humiliated was none other than his new boss. He quickly tried to apologize, stammering, I'm sorry, sir. I didn't know." Mr. Humiliates shook his head. "That's no excuse. Kofi, stand up." Kofi got to his feet, his heart still pounding. He couldn't believe how quickly things had changed. But this was just the beginning. Kofi stood up, dusting off his suit, his confidence slowly returning. The crowd that had gathered watched in stunned silence, realizing the gravity of the situation. Inspector Aide, now visibly nervous, continued to stammer apologies. Mr. Humiliates looked at Kofi, and then back at the officer. "Inspector Aide, your job is to protect and serve, not to judge someone based on their appearance. What you did today was wrong, and it could have serious consequences. Kofi, who had been silent until now, spoke up. I understand that mistakes happen, but it's important that we learn from them. I don't want to see anyone else treated this way. Inspector Aide nodded, his head hung low in shame. Thank you for your understanding, he said quietly. I promise to do better. Mr. Olumide, seeing that Kofi was willing to move on, decided to let the matter rest. Kofi, let's get you to the office. We have a lot to discuss about your new role. As they walked toward the car, Mr. Olumide turned back to the officer. Inspector Aide, I hope this experience teaches you to be more careful in the future. Everyone deserves respect, no matter what they look like. The officer nodded again, realizing that he had learned a valuable lesson that day. Kofi and Mr. Olumide got into the car and drove away, leaving behind the scene that had just unfolded. As they rode through the busy streets of Lagos, Mr. Olumide spoke. You handled that situation very well, Kofi. It's not easy to stay calm in moments like that. Thank you, sir, Kofi replied. I believe that how we respond to challenges says a lot about who we are. Mr. Olumide smiled. That's exactly the kind of attitude we need at Nijatech. I'm confident you're going to do great things here. When they arrived at the Nijatech office, Kofi was introduced to his new team, who welcomed him warmly. He quickly settled into his role, bringing fresh ideas and a strong work ethic that inspired everyone around him. Weeks later, Kofi was walking through the same busy intersection where the incident with Inspector Aide had occurred. This time, he was greeted with smiles and nods of respect from people who recognized him. He had become a well-known and respected figure in the community, not just for his position, but for his humility and kindness. As he continued on his way, Kofi spotted Inspector Aide directing traffic. Their eyes met, and the officer gave him a respectful nod. Kofi returned the gesture with a smile, knowing that their encounter had changed both of their lives for the better. Kofi's journey was far from over, but he knew that with hard work, determination, and the support of those around him, he could achieve anything. And in the heart of Lagos, where the streets were always busy and full of life, Kofi was ready to make his mark on the world. As Kofi walked past Inspector Aide, he couldn't help but reflect on how much had changed since that fateful day. His experience had made him even more determined to succeed, not just for himself, but to prove that no one should ever be judged by their appearance. At Nijatech, Kofi quickly became a driving force behind several successful projects. His leadership style was both firm and compassionate, and he earned the respect of his colleagues. He was known for his ability to bring people together, listen to their ideas, and find innovative solutions to complex problems. One day, Kofi was called into Mr. Olumide's office. As he entered, he noticed that Mr. Olumide was smiling broadly. Kofi, I have some exciting news, Mr. Olumide began. Thanks to your hard work and leadership, our company has been selected to lead a major government project. This is a huge opportunity for us, and I want you to be in charge. Kofi was both surprised and thrilled. Thank you, sir. I'm honored by your trust in me, he replied. As Kofi prepared to take on this new challenge, he thought back to the journey that had brought him here. He knew that it hadn't been easy, but he was proud of how far he had come. And he was determined to continue making a difference, not just for himself, but for others who might face similar challenges. Meanwhile, Inspector Aid had also undergone a transformation. The incident with Kofi had opened his eyes to the importance of treating everyone with respect and fairness. He had taken the lesson to heart and worked hard to improve his attitude and behavior. One day, as part of a community outreach program, Inspector Aid was assigned to work with local businesses to ensure their safety and security. To his surprise, one of his stops was Unjust. He felt a bit nervous as he walked into the office, remembering the last time he had seen Kofi. Kofi was in a meeting when he was informed that Inspector Aid was there to see him. He excused himself and went to the reception area, where he found the officer waiting. "Inspector Aid, it's good to see you again." Kofi greeted him warmly. Inspector Aid stood up and extended his hand. "Mr. Kofi, I want to thank you for how you handled our last encounter. It taught me a lot, and I've made changes to how I do my job. I hope I can earn your trust and respect." Kofi smiled and shook his hand. "We all have the capacity to change and grow, Inspector. I'm glad to hear that you've made positive changes. Let's work together to make our community better." From that day on, Kofi and Inspector Aid worked closely on several community initiatives. Their partnership became an example of how understanding, respect, and a willingness to change can lead to positive outcomes for everyone. Years later, Kofi's success at Unjust and his efforts in the community earned him widespread recognition. He was invited to speak at events where he shared his story and encouraged others to persevere in the face of adversity. Kofi's message was simple: we are all capable of greatness, no matter where we come from or what we look like. What matters most is our character, our actions, and how we treat others. And so, Kofi's journey continued, marked by achievements, challenges, and the knowledge that he had made a lasting impact on the lives of many, including that of a once harsh and judgmental police officer who had learned the true meaning of respect and justice.